Super producer Brenden safely partitioned on the other side of the glass. Thanks for getting up early with us or staying up late. However you are rolling on this particular Monday. A lot of stuff to dive into on the big show today. I know, we're all bummed out. We're all bummed out about the ping pong balls. I will attempt, not saying I will succeed, but you know what? I will attempt to try to put a spin on this number 7 pick thing. Because it was a bit of a bummer yesterday. Not one, not two, but three. 3 teams all leapfrog. Which, again, I have said over and over and over again, right? The conspiracy theory claims in the NBA lottery don't hold water to me because I don't see any evidence there. What do you mean by that, Justin? Well, the fact is, you have had generational talents coming into the draft. Not this year, but in years past, where you've seen generational talents, and you have also seen major market players in the mix, and they don't always match up. If they were going to rig the draft lottery, Victor Wembanyama's not going to San Antonio. He's not. Too small of a market. If you were going to rig the draft lottery 5 years ago, Zion Williamson is not going to go to New Orleans when the New York Knicks are sitting there, right? You look at the evidence that is there. Like, show me a case other than back in the 80s with the frozen envelope and the dented corner and the fact that it felt rigged and set up to send Patrick Ewing to New York, right? Patrick Ewing was that can't-miss pick. But even back in LeBron's time, right? LeBron James was a massive can't-miss pick. Cleveland? I know, he's from Akron, and he played for his hometown team. But Cleveland? You look all of these years at these guys, these number 1 picks that are coming in. Why aren't they going to Chicago, to New York, to Dallas, and these big-time markets, and to Brooklyn? It's because it's not rigged. But I will say this. There is a tanking problem in the NBA. And sometimes things that aren't real could ultimately help. Now, we're going to do some micro draft lottery stuff in 15 minutes. We're going to talk about the Blazers. But I want to do a little macro real quick because I am not a conspiracy theorist. There are certain things I go like, that doesn't make a lick of sense. But I don't have the time or the energy to deep dive into it. And the internet's a really weird place when you start deep diving. But if you were a conspiracy theorist, and I would to maybe make the case for you, if you were maybe, scrolling through your algorithm on TikTok or Reels or Shorts or whatever else you could scroll through, and I could be like, hey, the NBA's got a real problem with tanking. There are 2 major problems in the NBA right now. And by the way, it's still a great league, and we're going to talk a ton of basketball today. This is not a let's kick the NBA while it's down. But there are 2 major problems in the NBA right now. First major problem is you cannot count on star players playing every night. Now, I don't know if you're ever going to get that peanut butter back in the jar. Now, that once guys realized I only have to play 60 games instead of 82, and I still get paid the exact same amount, and just, once a week, I can just take a night off, and nobody's going to say anything? Yeah, that's the biggest problem they have in the NBA right now is that you can't, as a fan, as a consumer, count on night in, night out. You turn on a Thursday game, and you're like, oh, Embiid's not playing tonight. Well, guess what? I ain't watching. That's the biggest problem in the NBA, in my opinion. Second biggest problem in the NBA is tanking. And why is tanking a problem? Because, well, tanking kind of works. It's not perfect, but tanking kind of works. And they have done all sorts of things to try to eliminate tanking in the NBA. Like, you think the play-in is a coincidence? The play-in is a 100%, if we can keep some of these teams engaged, maybe they won't tank away the end of the season. But then even last year when you had Wembanyama kind of dangling out there, the Dallas Mavericks, who had Kyrie Irving and had Luka Doncic, who, by the way, might be going to the NBA Finals this year. They look pretty good.
They had about the same chance the Hawks did this year.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Last year with those two guys. And what did the Dallas Mavericks do? Well, they tanked away the season because even though it wasn't likely, they're like, do we want to go to the play-in game? Like, no. Shut down the season. Maybe we'll get Wemby. So, conspiracy theory time. If you're the NBA, you have got a draft where you don't have a consensus overall number one, right? There is, I don't know what this, is it Sarr? Is that the guy?
Alex Sarr. But it's no guarantee he even goes first. The Hawks have a solid front court, so I don't know about that.
Exactly right. So in a draft where you don't have a consensus, you don't have a Wemby, you don't have a Banchero, you don't have an Anthony Edwards, you don't have a Zion, you don't have any of those guys. Doesn't mean any of these guys can't be stars. More on that later. But if you don't have any of those, Brenden, wouldn't it be beneficial to the NBA that in a particular draft, in a time where tanking is kind of giving your league a bad rap, to maybe take a team that was in the play-in and maybe give them the number one overall pick? Go, see, guys, tanking doesn't work. Now, I'm not saying that's what they did. I'm saying if there was ever a time to do it, if there was ever a 3% chance, huh? Now, the reason why I don't believe this is because the amount of people that would have to, A, keep a secret. Nobody can keep a secret anymore. And B, the amount of billion-dollar lawsuits that would be filed if there was ever found out would bankrupt the league, and it would, like, the basketball would still go on, but the NBA would be no more. I firmly believe that if there was actual credible evidence that there was people in the league messing around with the draft lottery, which they're not, the amount of lawsuits that it would bankrupt the league. It would bankrupt the league. But if the perception is out there, this could be ultimately be a good thing, because now you've got teams like the Blazers who spent, now again, we have determined the Blazers were in a bit of a soft tank, but you have to really how hurt was Jeremy Grant? How hurt was Malcolm Brogdon? How hurt was Anthony Simons? Those, that last month of the season, how hurt were those guys? Was it a convenient, we're already at 19 wins, we really don't want to get to 25 wins? Let's just give them all the month of April off. So you take a team like the Blazers and you go through all of that, and out of nowhere, 3 teams who all had, they were all single digits, right? Everybody that leapfrogged the Blazers, I believe, to get into the top 3. I think we're all, you follow the tankathon. I know that the Hawks had a number 3, or not number 3, had a 3% chance, but I think everybody else was kind of in single digits in terms of chances of popping into the
Brooklyn pick that went to Houston at 3, the Wizards, that's kind of expected. The Spurs kind of expected. Yeah. Detroit. So Atlanta is the big winner in all this.
But the Houston pick, they leapfrogged. They kind of.
There was a 20% or 4% chance at number 1. It was a 20% chance top 4.
So you look at a season where the Hawks were not tanking this year.
No.
They were trying to win. I watched the Houston Rockets play the Blazers at the end of the year. Houston Rockets were not tanking. They were trying to win. Remember, it was they had that weird run in March where we were hey, watch out for the Houston Rockets. They weren't tanking. So if there was ever a time to maybe,
I'll say this: it's
meddle
a little bit
around
different
with the draft
though, Justin,
lottery.
with that pick was Brooklyn's from the Harden trade.
I'm saying as a perception to the fans going like, hey, they got the number 2 overall pick. Yes, it was Brooklyn's pick, but like they didn't have to tank to get there. So as a perception to the fan, I don't think this is a actual realistic thing, even though I just spent the last 8 minutes talking about it. I'm just saying if there was ever a time to have kind of an unprecedented that team just went from play-in, like they were playing against the Bulls for a chance to go and get beat by the Boston Celtics. Now they would have to win another game and beat the Heat and everything else, but they were just in the play-in. They're going to get the number 1 overall pick. Maybe this might help the tanking a little bit. Who knows? All right, so there you go. There's the macro. Now we're going to get into the micro. I shall attempt to be Captain Positive on this one. I am going to attempt to put a positive spin on this Blazers getting the 7th pick in the draft. Yes, it is a bummer, and I will acknowledge that, and I'm not going to sit here and chastise anybody who's a little bit bummed out about that. But there may be some other things when you dive deep into the numbers. We'll talk about that next here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, so like many of you, I was probably paying too much attention to my phone. I should have been paying more attention to my mom as I was having Mother's Day brunch with my mom yesterday. And flipping through my phone as I do because I knew that the draft lottery was coming up, and all of a sudden, and then I get a text from Brenden, and you're like, 7th. I was like, because I wasn't watching.
Did you get that text from me? I couldn't know.
Really?
I said you never replied.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah,
I sent you 2 texts. You didn't say
I was
nothing.
at brunch with my mom, and then I was like, whole thing happened, and then yes, I did not reply.
I don't take it personally. I just thought it was funny. I'm like, oh yeah.
I'm the worst.
That's why I don't text you, to be honest.
Just assume that I see everything and I nod in approval. Like, just here, look at me right now. I just gave you a nod. Like, put that memory, like, as if you send me a text, unless you, like, ask a question, got it. Which I appreciate, because I asked you to, because we had to do another thing, and I asked for a reminder.
Pre-planned, folks.
And I was like, thanks for the reminder. I will go back to brunch now. So we sat there. Ping pong balls came. Blazers 7. Oh, boy, that is a real kick in the junk, isn't it? And I'm trying to, like, figure out where the frustration and the anger is with a lot of Blazer fans that I saw on Twitter. Brenden, I know you came in hot this morning. You were, and I understand it. I get it. Because we do become obsessed with the numbers, right? We watch the NFL draft, and I know, like, this guy's this guy's not a top 15 guy. Well, if somebody's drafting at 14 and they need that guy, then guess what? He is a top 15 guy. I think, and I'm as guilty as anybody, we like, this is a top 3 guy. This is a top 10 guy. Well, we attribute those things to players we've already watched flourish and thrive. There's plenty of top 3 guys that have burned out in the NBA, and there's plenty of guys that were drafted after or around 7 that are currently helping teams in the NBA playoffs. So I'm going to throw out a bunch of names here. Now, I understand that, yes, the best team in the league right now is the Boston Celtics, and they're being led by 2 top 3 picks. I got it. I am not blind to that. I also understand that the Dallas Mavericks may very well win the Western Conference right now. And they have got the number one seed, Oklahoma City Thunder, on their heels. And they're also being led by former number 1 overall and number 2 overall. I understand that. But
I don't know if there's a lot of 7 picks dominating right now.
Say that again?
I don't know if there's a lot of 7 picks dominating at this moment.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Brenden, because I'm going to throw out some names. And I did this with regard to the MVP voting. The three-time MVP in the league right now, who could make an argument for maybe 4 or 5. Nikola Jokic was drafted in the 2nd round during a Taco Bell commercial. Right? I believe there was a crunch
exception, not the rule, I think is the term.
Wait for it, though. I've got more names. You think I'm just coming with a Jokic was a 2nd rounder? You think that's the weak argument that I am going? I know that you are a tough egg to crack this morning, but I'm going to attempt to make this omelet. But he was drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. Who's the 2nd best player on the Denver Nuggets right now, Brenden?
Jamal Murray.
Jamal Murray, drafted number 7 overall.
A non-all-star.
He is the 2nd best player on the defending champions. All-Star is a popularity contest. You can honestly say that you're telling me that if you had a player of the caliber of Jamal Murray, that wouldn't help the Blazers the last 2 or 3 years?
Totally, but
okay,
I think we have to look at it as like objectively as we did when we had Dame. It's like Dame had no all-stars. Like you still need to have that ability, no?
But you look at the Denver Nuggets, who just won the championship. They are being led by a 2nd-round draft pick and a number 7 overall. You can make chicken salad out of those chicken you-know-what picks.
Chicken salad.
Chicken salad is good. Are you a chicken salad fan? You'd see?
Never had it. And
you would never have it, would you?
No, don't plan to. Doesn't sound like my jam.
Is it the mayonnaise? Is
I would try it, but
I don't think hot take, and I don't think you would try it.
I do like
it's it's got the mayonnaise-y soupiness that I don't think you like.
I've never met a chicken entree that I wouldn't at least try. It is my favorite protein. So, but yeah.
Okay.
Now, like a chicken salad sandwich, I don't know.
It's so good.
I don't know.
So good.
But anyway, back to Justin's chicken salad.
Chicken salad is so good.
You get what I'm saying, though. Like, I'm not trying to be
I get what
contrarian,
you're saying.
but like Jamal Murray, like you look at it, Justin.
So if you went into this draft number 7 overall and you got a Jamal Murray, you'd be feeling pretty good about the Blazers in 2 years. Not at a guard, not at a guard.
Okay, I was going to say that'd be tough.
But you know what I mean?
You're right.
And also,
you're right.
by the way, how many All-Stars does Jamal Murray have if he doesn't tear his ACL? He has
probably one.
He's got
for sure.
one.
Yeah,
he's an all-star player. So,
but that injury, it stinks for him, and it's he's kind of fell under that radar now, Justin. Where like he needs to have an incredible season to be recognized as an all-star amongst his other all-star guard peers, right? You've got Anthony Edwards, you've got Shea, but yes,
my point is, regardless of he is helping his team win at the highest level. He was number 7 pick. Tyrese Halliburton. Now, Tyrese Halliburton was not drafted by the Indiana Pacers. He was traded away from the Sacramento Kings. And again, I know he's a point guard, but just go with me.
Rare win for both sides on that. I was thinking about that the other day. I said, is anyone really upset?
If you're in Sacramento, I think you might be a little bit upset. It was a fun light the beam thing last year, but I think you look at Tyrese Halliburton going like, I wish we still had that guy.
Oh, they're out on Sabonis, you think? Because I'm like,
I don't know if they're out on him, but I
he's
think
not Halliburton.
Halliburton's an emerging superstar, right? Brenden, number 11 pick. That's after 7. Or no, not 11, excuse me, 12.
Very true. Very, very true.
So you got Tyrese Halliburton. He's a 12th overall pick. Also in the Eastern Conference playoffs right now, Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is a very, very good player. He's so good, they're trying to run him out of Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell was a 13th overall pick. And I know that because every Blazer fan knows who was drafted after Zach Collins. But so you got Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell was the 13th overall pick. I know I've mentioned it multiple times. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's a number 11 overall pick.
Can we find? Oh, actually, Justin, can we find Bam Adebayo at 14 in this draft?
Bam Adebayo was a number 14.
That'd be really nice.
Jalen Brunson was drafted in the second round. Jalen Brunson was a second-round draft pick.
No, that one's real. I'll give you that one.
How about a guy that everybody has been clamoring for, and I know he's hurt right now, but he was playing a pivotal role for the Knicks. OG Anunoby. Everybody has been clamoring for OG Anunoby. I think he was in the 20s. I believe he was a 23 overall pick. I had all these numbers in my head. I should have written them down, but I believe he was the number 23 overall pick. OG Anunoby, number 2. Now, again, I understand Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown exist. I understand that also part of Oklahoma City is Chet Holmgren, who was a number 2 overall pick. I understand that Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic are leading Dallas, but Halliburton, Alexander, Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, Jokic, Brunson, OG Anunoby. These are guys contributing to playoff teams right now. Brunson's the best player on the Knicks. Halliburton's the best player on the Pacers. Jokic is the best player on the Nuggets. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best. That's half the teams in the playoffs right now. Their best player was drafted either at 7 or behind. And the reason I bring this up, I wouldn't talk about this last year because I'm not a big dumb doofus. I play one on the radio sometimes, but I'm not a big dumb doofus. I knew that Wemby was the prize. Even the year before, like, I know there was a lot of the Chet Holmgren slander, which, by the way, how you feeling right about now about the whole Chet Holmgren stuff? But I knew that Banchero was the prize. But if everybody has been saying, and again, how many of these people who are saying actually have legitimate knowledge of this particular draft class? But the word on this draft class is not exactly spectacular. What was the word on Tyrese Halliburton in that draft? I don't know if there are a lot. I mean, I remember the name because obviously Halliburton, and remember the whole scandal in the early 2000s, right? Funny that Halliburton kind of would come up again.
Some connection to the vice president. I heard.
Cheney.
I heard. But
That's about all I remember about Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's understandable, Justin, because he went to Iowa State, kind of flew under the radar.
Yeah.
And you see this every now and again in every draft where it is so much easier to find a guard later. And I'll highlight Tyrese Maxey's further along than Anthony Simons, but those two dudes were picked like
Boom.
23rd, 25th. I think it's a little easier to find an effective guard later in the draft than it is to find a wing or a big man.
Yeah.
Like, again, even if the draft shakes up, like Alex Sarr, Justin won't fall below 5. Like, Sarr will not be there when the Blazers, just because he's worth the potential of being 7 foot. You don't get 7-footers every day, kind of a thing.
I 100% agree.
Yeah,
I 100% agree with you. But the Blazers have got a pretty good 7-footer.
They do. And he's relatively young.
I think DeAndre Ayton could potentially, I'm not going to say be an all-star, but like could potentially be an above-average NBA center for this Portland Trail Blazer team. And by the way, he's still in his mid-20s. So
DeAndre Ayton could do quite a lot when he's motivated.
100%.
If the Blazers started all of a sudden, it's not probably going to happen, but say, Justin, the world changes and we're 45 wins next year. DeAndre Ayton, you'd get that DA we saw in the second half of the season, I think, for most of it.
And so we talked about this, and do you pick need, do you pick best available? Because I saw the first mock draft that was popped up there, and I had to laugh, Brenden, because they've got the Blazers picking a point guard at number 7. And it's like, whoa. We're not doing. But the idea that the Blazers are just good on guards is, I don't believe the case. Why? Because you're searching for superstars at number 7.
You can't pass on a player just because he doesn't fit, right?
Exactly right. You are searching for superstars. And no offense, unless your name is Damian Lillard, what has anybody on this team done that they are irreplaceable? And over the last 10 years of Blazer basketball, if your name was not Damian Lillard, like what have you done where you would go into the draft going, well, we can't do this because we got this. No. And by the way, Damian Lillard's gone, and this Blazer team won 20-some games. So, yeah, I'm with you. Guards, because, yeah, people gobble up 7-footers early on in the draft because, like you said, you can't teach that. Can't teach somebody to be
Size
7
is
feet.
Incredible, and it's true.
And I do think we are getting back to a time of NBA basketball where you're like, stat. How tall is he? Which is funny because that's how we shoot. Because that's how we pick teams in 7th grade, right? It's like, well, no, that guy's the tallest. Let's put him on our team.
Justin, I think you would go into a draft and go, who is the tallest guy who can shoot threes? And you'd be like, pick him. That would be Justin's draft board.
I'd make the play in at least. I think I'd make the play in.
But
so this is my point: is in a draft where we don't know. We are in an era right now of the draft where we have as just average show fans and even media members, we have probably the least amount of knowledge that we have ever had in the internet era. In the internet era is probably the least amount of knowledge that we have ever had because, again, I know Alex Sarr's name. Couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
We had to say his name several times just to get there, Justin. But I'm curious.
Know what I mean? I couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
I'm curious your take on this. Why do you think that is? In today's technology-savvy world where you can see no more grainy European footage.
Yeah.
Why does nobody know anything about this draft? It seems lazy to me. Everyone's like, whatever.
If I could speak for lazy media members everywhere, as I am one, we're used to things being spoon-fed to us. Wembanyama, that's a 7'4" alien from France. That's easy. Spoon-fed. Scoot Henderson, look at that guy. He's 19, but he looks like a 25-year-old, and his name is Scoot, right? It's spoon-fed to us. It's like it's there. And for years and years and years, even if you were not the biggest college basketball fan, you would pay attention during March Madness. And as early as when we watched Ja Morant at Murray State going like, that guy's fun to watch. Well, guess what? It's not the case anymore. And Brenden, have I mentioned that I watch Jeopardy? Have I mentioned that maybe once or twice on the show?
Or two.
There was a time when I would watch Jeopardy, and there would be a television category, and I'm like, I'm guaranteed 5 for 5. Your boy watches a lot of TV. Television categories come up now. Guess what? I don't know half of them. You want to know why? Disney Plus, Hulu Original, FXX. I don't know half these shows. I can't watch all of them. I don't have the time. And I think that's where we're at with the draft right now. There were 2 ways you got into the NBA after one and done. One and done got shut down in 2007. There were 2 ways to get into the NBA. It was you played in college, and we all knew who you were because you played in America. Or you're a Euro, and you got drafted, and everybody went, huh? Which is what happened, by the way. I'm trying to think of, like, Wemby was really kind of the first, like, I guess Luka Doncic was probably the first, hey, this European guy's coming in here, and everybody's like, yeah, that guy's really good. And there was a little bit of Tony Kukoc, but only because of the Dream Team stuff. Only because of the Dream Team stuff. And obviously, we all know about Arvidas, and all, but, like, for the most part, since 2007, a lot of times you get these European guys drafted in the top 5 and the top 10, and a lot of people went, huh? Who? Well, now we know that that's a pipeline. We know that that's, so you have to give that its due. You got to give the G League. You got to give overtime. You got to give, didn't LaMelo Ball go play in, like, Lithuania or something? So, like, you got American kids who went to Europe.
Yeah, because my boy's not going to play for UCLA again. That's my LeVar Ball.
Like, you got American players in Europe. You've got European players in colleges here, but they're not eligible, like Joel Embiid. Like, there's so many, just like TV, just like music, just like, pop culture right now. It's so spread out. That's basketball. And so we know very little. You listen to your type of music. I've thrown out a couple of things, and you're like, yeah, I don't know who that is. Because in my world, what are you talking about? Everybody, guys sold out the Tacoma Dome, and you're like, nah, I don't know who that is. Because everything is so spread out, and I think we're that way with the NBA draft right now. And I'm just the one guy that's going to come out here and be like, I don't know who that guy is. Did you watch, though? Because I did see the clip. Kendrick Perkins, who works for ESPN, former NBA player, whose job it is to cover the NBA. It is his job. They showed the mock draft after the lottery, and Kendrick Perkins, in a moment of honesty, was like, I don't know half those guys.
He's not wrong. I mean,
so
just kind of a
so this idea that this is a down draft just because you don't know him.
There's nobody like you said, yeah.
Even it's just because you don't know him.
I mean, to that point, Justin, unless you're like one of the 3 dudes at ESPN that make mock drafts, like you said, to your point, anybody probably who loosely followed the NBA could have told you the top 3 last year. I would be willing to bet that the most known player in this draft is probably Donovan Clingan, just because UConn.
Yeah.
And UConn being the
and his name was Klingon, which is funny.
Right.
But and again,
but is that
and I don't
want
to be mean, but would we? How many people would know Brandon Miller if the thing didn't
right.
happen?
So, like, is that a stretch that, like, the UConn player only because UConn was the wagon everyone watched this year?
And here's Sheldon Reed, who's like, or Reed Sheldon. I keep calling him Sheldon Reed. Because, like, he's from Kentucky. And,
yeah,
like,
it's true.
His dad played at Kentucky. And it's like, I remember that guy. Just because you don't know him doesn't mean it can't be the next Tyrese Halliburton. Now, we all knew Jamal Murray. But, like, I don't know if we all thought Jamal Murray was going to be that good. Donovan Mitchell, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, right? You had to be a pretty big basketball nerd. Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's like, I remember that guy with the long name at Kentucky, but, like, were you ever, that guy's going to be number 2 in MVP voting this year, and nobody knew who Jokic was.
I believe he went 11th in the draft, too.
He went 11th.
We want to add another one to the list, but.
Well, so like I said, I believe 5 of the MVP voting, you had Jokic, you had Brunson, and you had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 2 second-rounders and number 11. Now, They also had Luka in there. Again, I'm not saying. Point being is, number 7 stinks. I'm not trying to say, oh, it's going to be, but it's not a guaranteed whiff of a draft. Because you look at teams right now playing in the postseason who are dominating with guys drafted 7. But then there's also Anthony Edwards. I get it. It's a mixed bag. All right. Speaking of the playoffs, we're going to go back, take a look at some of the big stuff over the week. Boy, the Nuggets make me look like a big dumb doofus, didn't they? As I cooked them on Friday, and they're like, not yet. Bleepity bleep. We'll talk about that next. 620 Rip City Radio. You know, in sports, we never learn. We never learn. It's really kind of the fun part of this whole thing is just, keep making the same mistakes over and over again, right? Expecting a different result. They say that is the definition of insanity. I don't think that is. I think it's a cute thing to put on a on a card or like or a motivational thing. I don't think that's the actual. Could you imagine like if you're like, Doc, I think I'm insane. Well, are you doing the same thing over and over but expecting a different result? Like it's not the definition of insanity, but it's enough to drive you nuts, which is why I think we call ourselves fans or fanatics because we're all nuts from trying to do the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Brenden, can I go a step further? You want to like Insanity Plus is like the streaming service of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again, getting it right once, but then figuring that one time it's just going to be right every time after that. And it never is. That's kind of where I'm at because I should know better. I should know better. I've watched basketball in my life. And I should know that making definitive statements after game 2 of an NBA series that is 7 games is really, really foolish. And I should have learned my lesson. Did I? No. Will I continue to make mistakes and not learn this lesson into the future? Maybe even to the next round? Potentially. So let's dive in. Let's talk about it. We need a soundtrack for that. Give me some Tesh. All right.
For what it's worth, Justin,
yeah,
I would like to take my victory lap and say I called this. While you said the Nuggets were
done.
I
declared the Nuggets cooked, and I thought I had a whole clever thing because they're Nuggets and you can actually cook them.
That's pretty good.
And we did a whole thing about the oven, and
I'll give you that. That's pretty good.
They look like absolute trash. They look like absolute trash. Like Jamal Murray was throwing stuff on the court. By the way, how about that non-suspension? Potentially,
it was a game changer, as we thought.
Shifting not just this series, but potentially shifting the NBA. But neither here nor there, he wasn't suspended. And the Nuggets win game 3. And
blow them out.
And you're like,
they were up for probably 30 most of the game, just. It was insane.
And so I'm like, all right, Timberwolves are going to get something figured out. And obviously the Nuggets aren't going to go down without a fight. They're the defending champions for a reason. And then last night, 35-7-7 from Jokic. But again, I joke about how we're kind of going back to 7th grade basketball with Victor Wembanyama. It's like, hey, throw it down to the tall kid. It is an age-old basketball strategy when you've got a team that has a superstar player, and that is let him get his. We're going to defend everybody else. You see it at high-level high school basketball. Heck, you see it in college. Like, he's good. Like, UConn did it to Zach Edey, right? Zach Edey's going to get his. Nobody else is going to beat us. And I feel like that's where the Denver Nuggets are at right now. Anthony Edwards dropped 44. But they were never really close. Look at it looks like a close game at the end. It was not. Like they never were within, I think, single digits with an actual shot. And that's because Rudy Gobert got 11 points in 35 minutes. Did pull in 14 boards, though. Karl Anthony Towns brought in 38 minutes, 13 points. Was 1 of 4 from 3. 5 of 18, Karl Anthony Towns. Like, they just let Anthony Edwards get his, and we're going to defend everybody else.
Yeah, and I think it was a good strategy. I mean, again, I don't love him as a personality. I got a lot of respect for old Mikey Malone, man. He is
a psycho.
Good coach. And that's why when everyone's like, oh, the Nuggets are cooked, Anthony Edwards is the next Michael Jordan.
You pump the brakes. Pump the brakes on that one a little bit.
I just said, calm down. The guy who likes his horses has 3 MVPs now.
Yes.
And Justin Jokic's game didn't really change. You go look at the game logs. It's not like from games 1 and 2 to 3 and 4, Jokic really changed. He's kind of been Jokic is steady Eddie. You know this. He gonna get his every game. That's just how it is.
And it feels like Michael Malone. I'll say Michael because he won 2 games, and I'll give him his credit. I'm gonna get right back to Mikey once I don't like him again. But it feels like. And I think great coaches, and he's a great coach. He's got a ring for a reason.
Yeah, totally.
Great coaches do this. I think he looked at Minnesota and was like, where's the weak link?
I
And
go, where's the beef?
no, I think he looked at Minnesota and was like, where is Karl Anthony Towns?
You think so?
I think Karl Anthony Towns, I think they got under his skin. And
So
also
did Jimmy Butler.
on both sides, though, they're like, Aaron Gordon had like the game of his life yesterday.
I never thought about that.
And I think Michael Malone was like, all right, we can't stop Anthony Edwards. Nobody can. That guy is an emerging superstar. He's going to be the face of the league. But we can attack Karl Anthony Towns.
Question.
And I think that's what they did on both sides, because you look at the game that Aaron Gordon had, and then also you look at the other side of it where Towns was an absolute non-factor.
Yeah. Let me throw in a comparison for you.
Boom.
Do you think that the Nuggets are the equivalent of, like, let's just say, like, Celtics and Pistons of the late 80s, early 90s? And let's just say, let's live in a world where Anthony Edwards may have a Jordan-like ceiling.
Yeah.
Is this where the Timberwolves are going to find out, like the Bulls did, we need the perfect supporting cast around Ant, or
Yes.
we're not going? Because remember, Justin loves the Doug Collins, Michael Jordan, 45 a game, baby.
I know.
But they were never going to win a championship that way.
Yeah.
So
everybody's
I'm
kind of
curious.
learning that.
I'm curious if you think there's some legs to that.
100%, because you look at every team that is having success right now, like the Knicks are struggling because their supporting cast is getting hurt.
Yes.
Jalen Brunson can't do it all. He's tried. When did the Pacers start figuring some things out? When they started moving the ball around and when other guys stepped up and had big games, right? Who is it? Because Halliburton last night or yesterday morning.
He was cooking.
He had 20, but you got.
Oh, it was a game before. I must be thinking.
You got 15 from T.J. McConnell, right?
He's still in the league.
You got like Pascal Siakam is coming, like having a little bit of a resurrection there. So yeah, when you look at all of these series, like the superstar can't do it on its own, and I think the Denver Nuggets looked at Karl Anthony Towns and was like, that's our weak link. We can attack him. And I think it's worked.
To your point, just real quick, how do you think the Toronto Raptors feel that, like, both those players that they held so highly, they're both pretty big contributors on playoff teams? OG and Pascal, man. I'm just saying.
We might talk about that on the other side. We'll also get back into the draft talk. We've got to make or miss. Hour number 2 of Rip City Mornings coming up next. 620 Rip City Radio. It is 7 a.m. on a Monday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trail Blazers will be picking 7th. Also 14th in the first round of the NBA draft coming up in about a month. The Atlanta Hawks are the big winners yesterday as they, with just a 3% chance, leapfrogged the entire field in the lottery to get the number one overall pick. Elsewhere over the weekend, the Pacers even up their series with the New York Knicks at 2 games apiece with a 121-89 victory. Neither team has lost at home. That's the opposite in the other series because nobody can win at home. The Nuggets win 2 on the road in Minnesota. They even up that series at 2 games apiece as well, 115-107. Cavs, Celtics, Game 4 tonight. Thunder, Mavs, Game 4 as well. And coming up in hour number 3, we will talk to Sean Highkin from the Rose Garden Report. Hour 2, though, of Rip City Morning starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Coming up this hour, we'll have a make or miss. Also, we have got some stuff I saw on the internet. But the big story of the day is the draft lottery and the ping pong balls that did not fall the way of the Portland Trail Blazers. With a lot of anticipation, Blazer fans were kind of hoping, was it all going to be worth it? Was this another season of losing on purpose sometimes going to be worth it to pop themselves maybe into the top 3 again, back-to-back years, maybe even get the number 1 pick? Who knows? No, they actually fall backwards. So let's do the math, shall we? So far, the Blazers have tanked 3 years in a row. Fair to say? Fair to say they've tanked 3 years in a row. First year, they were slotted 6th in the draft order, got leapfrogged, moved back a spot. 7th, pick Shaedon Sharpe. Next year, I think they were, they were slotted 4th, I think, and then got 1 spot up, 3rd? Or 5th.
I think they were 5th last year and jumped up to 3.
Jumped up to 3, got Scoot Henderson. This year, slotted 4th. Worst they could be is 7th. Well, that's what they got, the worst. As they got jumped a handful of times. So 2 out of the 3 times now that the Blazers have been tanking, they have actually moved backwards in the draft. And they will have the number 7 overall pick. They will also have, again, the number 4. So, again, not all bad. Because if there was a team that you did not want to see leapfrog everybody with just a 3% chance, the Golden State Warriors did not hold on to their protected pick. So the Blazers will have that, even though it wouldn't even been Golden State's pick, right? If it went into the top 3, didn't it go?
No, it would have been theirs.
Okay.
It would have
so
been interesting to see the Warriors jump. Like, of all the teams, like the Warriors.
But it was the Warriors by way of Celtics? Or
Memphis and Celtics. That pick got passed around more than a beer in college, man.
I know that poor. Maybe something good can happen.
Yeah, maybe it's a lucky pick,
maybe
man. You never know.
All those years of everybody saying, I don't want that 14th
hippity
pick.
hop, hippity hop, hippity hop, hippity hop.
But to be fair, it wasn't just the 14th. Nobody thought the Warriors were going to be bad for a while, which is why nobody really wanted that pick. But that being said, here we sit. Here we sit with the number 7 pick. And again, this is, I don't want to say the problem with tanking because you had to rebuild this team. You had to do it. Was this the proper way to do it? Who knows? We'll find out later. But you had to rebuild this team. It had gotten to a point where it just was not going to work. And I think for a lot of Blazer fans, myself included, I think for a lot of Blazer fans, it became almost like a game. Since the problem with tanking is it's the opposite of, like, when you're trying to make the playoffs and you get the 6th seed, you don't then wait for some ping pong balls and maybe you're the 7th seed. No, you're the 6th seed. The matchup is the matchup, right? Your record is your record. The problem with tanking is it's an inexact science. There is luck to go along with it. You need certain things literally to bounce your way. They're ping pong balls. They bounce. And if you try to look at tanking the same way you look at like a strategic run to the postseason, well, you're going to get burned unless you get super duper lucky. Everybody was tanking away last year because they wanted Wemby. The Spurs got lucky. They did. Spurs got lucky. Blazers could have got lucky. Hornets could have got lucky. Wizards could have got. And the Spurs got lucky. They get Wemby. That's not this draft. This draft, now you got to go get lucky two different ways. A, you got to look under every rock and search every dark corner of the basketball world. And B, you got to hope that maybe you find something in someone in this draft that nobody else sees and hope that that person falls to number 7. I've been throwing names out all morning of guys in the league right now. From Halliburton to Brunson to Gilgeous-Alexander to Jamal Murray to Jokic to OG Anunoby, right? You look at these guys that are contributing. Did I say Halliburton? If I didn't, Tyrese Halliburton, Donovan Mitchell, right? All of these guys who are contributing to a postseason run right now. And all of those guys that if we look back in hindsight and go like, oh boy, would have been nice to have that guy on the roster for the last 3 years. Yeah, would have. This is what you do. Jamal Murray was drafted 7. Halliburton was, I believe, 12th overall. Donovan Mitchell was 13th overall. Gilgeous-Alexander was 11th overall. OG Anunoby was 23 overall. Those guys are out there. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that that's the best way to build a roster. No, because I'm not silly and stupid. I know that Luka and Kyrie and Tatum and Brown, right, and Anthony Edwards, I know those guys exist as well. But all hope is lost because you've got a number 7 pick. Like there is no evidence to support that. Yeah, Joel Embiid was number 2 overall. Second best player on Philadelphia, Tyrese Maxey. A guy that Blazer fans would know this. Brenden, how much have they protected Tyrese Maxey these last 2 years in terms of trade rumors?
I mean, everything.
Everything.
But then again, like I said.
But he was drafted in the 20s.
And to that point, Justin, James Harden might say Daryl Morey is a liar, and maybe he is. But you know what he is, Justin? Really good at identifying guards who are going to pop.
Sure.
Man. So it's like, you knew when he protected him for about 2 years, it's like, yeah, no, we're not trading that guy. You're like, okay, yeah, he's probably going to be pretty good.
And we've talked about, and this need for the Blazers, right? What is their need? They're in the, it's a benefit, but also it's a bit of a burden. You don't have need. You need everything. You need everything. And yes, Scoot is going to take precedent. And if there is another player in this draft that looks and plays and is in the same ballpark as Scoot, you're probably not going to draft him if he falls at 7, even if you think he's a dynamic player. But other than that, there is no sacred position for the Blazers. The Blazers are in a weird spot where they are searching for a superstar. Now, maybe they've got one in Scoot, and I hope so. And maybe Shaden gets healthy because, again, all those guys that I listed, all those guys that I just told you about, I think Donovan Mitchell is really the only one that kind of came on the scene and really made a splash, right? That first year, Donovan Mitchell with the Jazz, you're like, oh boy, that guy was incredibly good.
The day that Luka stepped on the court, it was incredible.
Yeah, but I'm talking about guys
later,
the 7th round and beyond guys, right?
Or 7th pick, you mean?
7th pick,
yeah.
7th round.
I wish the NBA had 7 rounds.
Used to, by the way. They used to go a ton of rounds.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Definitely changed.
But you look at Jokic took time to become 3-time MVP. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander took time and a trade. Tyrese Halliburton took time and a trade.
Uh,
Jamal Murray got to
was-
get past injuries.
Yeah, Jamal Murray was he played in all 82 games, but he was 9 points a game as a rook.
Yeah. So, like, Jamal Murray took time. Like, so you have to play the long game. And you know what sucks about the long game? It takes a long time.
There's a lot of losing along the way.
And there is a not fun slog of losing along the way. It's not fun. This is, and I know this because I've had to lose weight a time or two in my life. The beginning of losing weight's super, super exciting. You get real excited. You're like, I'm throwing all this junk food out. And it's a Monday. Maybe some of you started today. Maybe last night you're like, that's it. We tighten it up. And it's real exciting. You're like, you're getting rid of junk food and you're only broccoli and water and boneless, skinless chicken breasts. It's the only thing allowed in this refrigerator. And you get kind of excited. And then there comes a slog where you're like, oh boy, I really want Taco Bell. Boy, I really do. And that's where the Blazers are right now. It was not that it was exciting, but it was something new. All right, rip this team down. Trade away players. Let's get some picks. Let's go young. Like, oh, this is really hard to watch. And that's where we are right now. But the good news is there are plenty of guys drafted. And by the way, you notice I've gone through this entire time talking about 7th pick and beyond. I haven't mentioned Steph Curry once. I haven't mentioned him once. Because there's far more, because that's the easy way to do it, right? Steph Curry was the 7th overall pick. Yeah. Everybody knows that. But there's only one Steph Curry.
Yeah, and I don't think you're going to get the Timberwolves to take Johnny Flynn and Ricky Rubio ahead of him, but you never know.
But you don't know what you're going to get the Nets to do. Maybe they do something stupid.
Justin, watch a team like the Spurs pull that off this year because they need a point guard to go with Wemby. Like, I would not be surprised. Yeah, we'll take that Kentucky point guard and that guy. One of them will pop.
Yeah.
Would that be
Why
crazy?
not? It wouldn't be crazy. All right. We got Make or Miss coming up in a bit. We've also got some stuff I saw on the internet. But before we get to all that, I do want to tell you about Oregon's home improvement experts. That's right. Of course, I'm talking to you about DeBella. They specialize in roofing, siding, windows, bath renovation. And what a beautiful weekend we have. And maybe taking a look around your home and you're like, Boy, we got a lot of projects we were putting off. Well, DeBella is the first call you should be making. They are going to schedule a free estimate. They will come to you on a time that is convenient. Plus, as I mentioned, always free, always easy. 15,000 5-star reviews on Google, so you can trust their work. Plus, you've probably seen their work in places like Better Homes and Garden, HGTV, award-winning customer service. And right now you can take advantage of no payments until 2025 on approved credit. That's right. DeBella's incredible financing of no payments until 2025. So now is the time to update your roofing, siding, windows, and bath. Contact DeBella and start saving today. All right, coming up in 1 hour from now, Sean Highkin from the Rose Garden Report is going to be joining us. He was there in Chicago. I know where it was because I looked it up. He was there in Chicago for the draft lottery as the Blazers fell to number 7. Atlanta gets the number 1 pick. The Washington Wizards are 2. Houston and San Antonio both jumped the line, sitting at 3 and 4, and then Detroit, Charlotte, Portland round out the top 7. The Blazers will also have the number 14 pick in the first round as well. San Antonio's got 4 and 8.
So because Toronto's pick did not land in the top 6, belongs to the Spurs.
Goodness gracious.
So my thing with that is now the way it breaks out, the Spurs are if they pick a point guard in this class that's elite with 2 picks and 2 cracks at it, and then you've got a point guard to go with Wemby, Justin, oh my goodness, like how does that work out any better for them?
Dumb question though. Okay, now remember, I preface this. Dumb question. Dumb question. This is the draft that everybody says, not that great. You're San Antonio. You got Wemby, right? Everybody in the league, if you were to give them truth serum, wants to play with that guy. Unless you are an established superstar, right? Unless you are an established superstar, everybody in the league would be like, dude, you put me with Wemby, I'm going to be in the finals next year. Now, I don't know if that's truth, but I think a lot of
we'll see it.
If you're San Antonio, do you go? I think about this like a college football team, right? The transfer portal's changing everything in college football because why would you go recruit a 4-star high school kid when I can get a guy that's played 2 years at Boise or wherever, and I already know if you're San Antonio, do you maybe like trade number 4 and number 8 and go find an established point guard somewhere who maybe isn't that happy with where they're at? Like
you could go get Trae Young. You literally could go get Trae Young. He would be available. He would be. From everything I've heard, like you meant Trae Young and Wemby?
Or like
everybody's
trying to kick Donovan Mitchell out of Cleveland.
That would be nasty.
Like, what if they just give Cleveland
couple picks,
and then Donovan Mitchell goes down to San Antonio and plays with Wemby?
Donovan Mitchell would need to say he wants out for that to happen.
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah,
though.
if he did.
But we're in this next month between now. When is draft's June 27th or 26th? Excuse me.
If you're D. Mitchell, do you want out of Cleveland? Is it?
Who knows who wants out of where anymore? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, we went through it. We know when a guy wants out, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, how could it ever be that a guy says loyal to the soil and then some things happen? But you know what I mean? Like if you're San Antonio, like maybe you shop that number. I don't know how valuable the number 4 pick is this year because again, I said it on the video that I made yesterday. Check that out on Rip City Radio's socials. Do you like it when people say socials? I don't. Even though I just did it. But on Instagram and YouTube and everywhere else. But picks become players.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing we all forget is we want to throw a number, and then we all think of like, a top 7 pick, and it's top 7. It's going to be a person, right? Blazers did this 2 years ago. That's Shaedon Sharpe now. That's who that is. He may pop and become an all-star. He may be oft injured for the next 3 years. We don't know, right? Picks become players. I know nobody wants to say it, but I'm just saying.
I think the Spurs are going to be really.
But if you're Spurs, don't you like some point guard's going to be disgruntled somewhere, and you're just like, dude, we could be in the finals next year.
That's the thing is like I think Wemby makes them competitive immediately. I think
so tall and he's so good.
For what it's worth, Justin, I mean, and I said this when they drafted him, like, and I'm not being ageist at all, but how much longer does Pop have? Like, is that like a stretch to say he's 70s? Like, do you think Pop wants to be like, hey, let's just wait, see if I can get another crack at it with Wemby? But like, he's 75.
I don't know Greg Popovich, and I've been lucky enough to interview a handful of NBA head coaches, so I don't know these guys. But here's what I would imagine. I think if you're a guy like Steve Kerr and you're like kind of getting bored with this, you know what I mean? Whereas like if you are Popovich, he's like, this is going to be a dated reference. He's like the Madonna of coaches, right? I don't know if you're old enough to appreciate just the grip that Madonna had on the zeitgeist in the 80s and the 90s, right? Just a smidge. Go ask your mom, she'll tell you. But
Fair.
But the whole thing was because Madonna came out, she was the material girl, and then she reinvented herself every 2 or 3 years and stayed on top for a long, 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 long time. Taylor Swift a little bit like that, right? Came in, was country,
Also
reinvented as pop, and then reinvented the eras thing. You reinvent yourself over and over and over again. That's what Popovich has done, right? He was the guy. It started with Duncan and David Robinson won a title. Then he was the first to really kind of bring in and embrace European style basketball, right? With Parker and Ginobili and all those guys, and they're constant movement, all that stuff. And then you had another run with Kawhi.
I said he also drafted Kawhi at 15, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a guy we didn't mention, Justin. How do we not get back to the claw?
Shame on me.
Yeah, that dude
Shame
went
on me,
50.
Kawhi Leonard.
That's probably other than Jokic. And, I say what you will about Donovan Mitchell, Bam Adebayo, other guys. Kawhi Leonard's probably the best latest pick that's not Jokic or Giannis. For how late he went in that, I think it was 2012, I think was that draft.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kawhi Leonard, man, 15. So, you never know. He was just some quirky guy out of San Diego State who laughed funny, Justin.
So bad.
Classic, man. Absolute classic.
But the reason I bring up Popovich, though, is because he's kind of reinvented himself over and over and over again. And, by the way, Paul George, 10th overall pick.
Yeah,
in case anybody want to know, Paul George.
I didn't even think
he's
about
in the
PG.
playoffs. Yeah.
He was.
He was.
I didn't even think about PG. That's a great
Paul
one,
George,
too.
10th overall pick.
That's a good pick.
They're out there, gang. They exist.
You trust in Joe Cronin and his Mike Schmitz-led team.
You hope so.
I think I have confidence in him, but I'm also, rose-colored glasses in this particular instance.
So, you would think, the super team is the LA Clippers. Yeah, that's was a 13th overall pick in Kawhi and a 10th overall pick. Now, James Harden was a 3 overall pick.
He was so good at Arizona
So
State.
good.
He was. I just remember him
He was
cooking
so
the
good.
Pac-10, Justin. He was so good.
I watched him play at MacArthur Court, and I was like, that guy's a different level.
He didn't have the beard back then.
Didn't
though.
have the beard, had short hair.
Oh, it's insane when you look at pictures. You're like, who's that guy?
He drove to the lane with such force. Anyways,
He hadn't started the flop yet. He
No.
hadn't figured out throwing the hand. Oh my
He
gosh,
was playing
kids won't even know.
He was
Justin.
playing like Anthony Edwards
Yeah,
playing now. He got to the rack.
He's
Nobody
so
could stop
strong.
him.
I mean, Justin, he was part of that run. Then we'll get into make or miss. And you know this too. Maybe, recency bias. But there was a run of Pac-10 basketball players from about, let's include the Andre Iguodala Arizona team. So 03
Yep.
to 2012. Just
You don't even
yeah,
dude,
again,
I watched all of those games.
my go-to is Alan Crabb for Cal, and of course he made it here. But James Harden, you had, obviously Brandon Roy at Washington, the couple Ducks who made it. I mean,
Russell Westbrook,
Kevin
Love.
I mean, yeah, but just
Brandon Roy, Will Conroy, Nate Robinson,
yes.
Isaiah Thomas, the younger Isaiah, not the older Isaiah Thomas, Gilbert Arenas,
Dwight Powell at Stanford. I mean,
now we're just naming guys.
Oh, I know, but you know what I mean? You and I could just go because Pac-10 basketball was so much fun to watch back then. Not anymore, though.
Can I tell you a real quick story, then we'll get to make a miss?
Go for it.
Real quick story. Most people know this. I used to work at a TV station that no longer exists anymore. And that TV station had a podcast. It was called Talkin' Blazers Podcast. Maybe you heard of it. It was hosted by one of the former hosts of this show, and the co-host was Channing Frye, former Blazer Channing Frye, who I got to meet a handful of times. Incredibly nice. So to promote the Talkin' Blazers podcast, Channing Frye came on The Bridge and on The Bridge podcast. And Brenden, you would think that if I had a former Blazer on and it was the Talkin' Blazers podcast we were there to promote, in inner office promotion, I would probably talk a lot about the Blazers, right? I was talking to Channing Frye about Pac-10 basketball.
Nice.
I got in so much trouble. They're like, what did you... And I'm like, I'm sorry. We started talking about 2007 Pac-10 basketball, and I couldn't stop.
I mean, like Justin just said, we could name names.
I couldn't stop.
We could name.
And all of a sudden, it was like, we are 27 minutes into a half-hour interview.
I know, right?
You might want to talk Blazers.
Oh yeah, no, it's easy, and I think it's Justin and I's overlapping, but yeah, I mean, I go back to that time. I used to not only watch my Beavs, but just like it was so much fun to watch the Pac-10 because
Casey Jacobson.
Yeah, there are just so
Stanford.
many dudes who ended up, and it was still true, Justin. We say that, but like Markelle Fultz, DeAndre Ayton, Lonzo Ball. I mean, there's been dudes in recent years too, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just maybe you and I weren't quite as connected to it back then as we were back then. You were in Eugene. I was just a teenage fan wanting to watch college games.
Dude, MacArthur Court was like anyways.
Good times, man.
Good times. Good times, great oldies. The best 80s, 90s. And today, and it's time for
Make or miss.
Miss.
Good times, too.
By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, my apologies. During the break, I ate a Cliff Bar, and I just had some remnants, and let's just say a little piece of Cliff Bar went rogue.
Oh, gotcha.
In the middle of one of my sentences.
I think
and if you're watching on YouTube, go like, what does he do? It's like,
we've all had to wear that, I think. I don't think that's that's
the weirdest thing, like when you talk and and then you spit or spit something and you're like,
or you see like, again,
I saw it, you saw it, but we're not going to talk about it.
Just like a crumb go,
just gone.
Fly through the air. All right, let's open up. Make or miss today. The Nuggets are showing why they are champions.
Good. They're the Undertaker. They're the Undertaker. Now, I don't know if you understand about 90s wrestling, but the Undertaker, one of his greatest things is he was done.
Is he the one that climbed out of the coffin?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
And
so I know the Undertaker.
And one of the Undertaker's moves, one of his works, the way he got people fired up, got heat, as they would say, or a good pop, he would be laid out, flat on his back, and would just sit right up because the Undertaker, he can't die. And apparently that's the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets, they were done. It was over. Now, that being said, What's new is old and what's old is new, and tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme, is in the postseason in the NBA. You take a team like the Timberwolves that is newbies to this postseason game. You take them, you put them on the road, win 2 games, have everybody essentially crowning them, and now you're going back home. You just blew their doors off without Rudy Gobert in game 2. Remember that? Remember Rudy Gobert? It was the birth of his child, and didn't matter. No Gobert, no problem. They still beat the tar out of him. And Anthony Edwards is the next Michael Jordan. He's the face of the league. Brenden, you said Thursday or Friday, you said Anthony Edwards might be better than Jokic.
I did.
It's time to have that conversation. And it was.
You know how much I love Jokic.
It was time to have that conversation.
I say it all the time. I love the Jokic.
And Denver Nuggets just went Undertaker. And
just
look like, boy, you done ticked them off now.
Well, here's the problem I see, Justin, and I know you might like to say it's maybe playoff momentum, all those things. I do believe in playoff experience mattering for a young team, and when you look at it, who's got playoff experience? Only Gobert.
Yeah, it's true. And it's a real thing,
right?
Because
when
you learn like the emotional swings, and you realize that
yes,
one bad performance and the series is flipped.
Right, and that's
what happened.
And I think ultimately, the Nuggets, again, the Timberwolves were so confident. I think the Nuggets, to be perfectly honest, didn't take them seriously enough in the first 2 games. I think the Nuggets kind of thought they were going to roll like last year. But as Justin said earlier, Mike Malone, being the great coach that he is, made the adjustments, let Anthony Edwards get his, and said, you guys, and again, Justin said it best. Karl Anthony Towns has kind of always had a reputation that if you get under his skin, you can kind of, again, that's why Jimmy Butler forced his way out of Minnesota, called Karl Anthony Towns soft. And, maybe they identified, go at Towns. Gobert's not, right? Gobert is a 4-time defensive player of the year now, Justin. Well, I can't believe he casually won another one this year.
I know.
Remember when nobody wanted him 3 years ago? I mean, what a crazy sequence of events. But
also, by the way, if you were to ask like actual real basketball guys who know like the strategies of defense and everything else,
like Pounce.
I don't know if Rudy Gobert wins it. I know he blocks a lot of shots.
Let's ask Pounce tomorrow. That'd be good.
I will definitely love to ask him.
You know what I mean? So ultimately, final thought on them. Justin, I do love Anthony Edwards, but I think this is a classic case of Michael Jordan running into the Pistons or running into the Celtics before they were done. Yeah, and that's what I mean, it's lazy, but I think it's going to fit like a glove. I got the Nuggets taking the series. Might go 7, though. This might go a 7-game series.
They might
be
rattle
amazing,
off.
but
they might rattle off.
But is that crazy to think like Anthony Edwards still could be at that Mike Kobe level? But I think he's got to go through some playoff heartbreaks first.
Every great player, even LeBron, they all had to learn to trust teammates until they won championships. They all had to learn. I mean, remember,
now Steph's learning curve was pretty short, but yeah. He was what, year 3 or 4? Something like that?
But Steph, it was almost the opposite, right? His coaches and Steve Kerr had to learn to trust him. Like, he can shoot all them threes. Don't worry about it. Like, it's going to be just fine.
But a jump shooting team can't win a title, Justin. Remember that narrative? And Curry broke that glass ceiling. So, yeah.
But like, you look like LeBron, like, he made that one run to the finals in Cleveland, but it was just like who'd they lose to? Is that a Spurs team? Probably a Spurs team.
Which one?
The early LeBron to the finals, I think, lost to the Spurs.
Yes, they did.
Then even in Miami, like, it took a season to figure out the whole Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh,
right, and that's where
Mario Chalmers thing, and so they figured that one out, and then won a couple, and even going back to Cleveland, had to learn to trust Kyrie.
Right. And they got
then Kyrie stopped trusting him and said, get me out of here.
Right. And they got that, in the second year. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's something to that. And, I've made my feelings clear. But, again, just respect game. That's why I wouldn't count out Damian Lillard and the Bucks in the future. Because while I think Dame's window is short, Justin, they'll be so much better next year. Like,
they're gonna be
with
fine.
Doc, with Dame, with Giannis. I mean, if they stay healthy, you'll look back and go, okay, they took their lumps last year, figuring out how to play together. It's gonna be just forgot about Dre. I think a lot of people could forget about Dame. And Giannis,
100%, because it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah,
and
the Pacers took them down. I'm sorry,
don't sell the Sixers out either, right? We get so quick to forget. It's like, oh, yeah, they're gone. They stink. It's like, there's probably some reasons to that and injuries and everything else. What's going to be interesting in the East is, like, again, does Donovan Mitchell stick around in Cleveland if they go down to the gentleman's sweep? What's up with Orlando, right? Was this a flash in the pan, or is Orlando on the way up? What's going on with Atlanta? Because just 2 years ago, Atlanta was really good. Was it just 2 years ago? 3 years.
That was 2021 with
All right,
Nate,
so 3 years
with
ago.
Nate McMillan. And then
they were in the West. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals. But 2 years ago, they were in the second round, right?
I said, unfortunately, I didn't save it from Friday, but I go back to our clip Friday we played, Justin, from Draymond Green, when he said, and this, I'm sorry for Blazers fans triggered, he's like, the Blazers and Hawks, 2 teams who made the Western Conference Finals and not too long ago, and turned out they were kind of frauds. And he's not wrong. It was the way the matchups broke and all that stuff.
All right, do we have one more make or miss?
Yes. Lady Luck didn't do the Blazers any favors yesterday.
Well, let's hope that Lady Luck sticks around, right? It's the toughest thing in life, but that is everything happens for a reason, and
so they say.
So they say.
Like,
right?
I have no evidence, Justin. Like, they just say
that. It's anecdotal, right? I'm sitting here with you doing this show based off of a dozen things that I did not want to happen at the time, but it all did. And I know that's a little Pollyanna-ish, but it is one of those things. In sports, especially in the draft, right, you have a good organization, you have good people in charge, and now, and we will see, right? We will see what the Blazers do with this spot, and can they find a guy? Can they find, not even a diamond in the rough, but just can they go out and find a contributing player in this draft? And we have just rattled off guys in the playoffs right now, all drafted 7th or behind, who are all not just contributing, but Paul George is the best player on the Clippers. Kawhi's a two-time Finals MVP. Jokic, like we don't need to run through them again, but like that's what you need to have happen.
Yeah, you ever notice, Justin, how nobody ever says that saying for something good? It's always
I know.
when something negative. It's like, well, this happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason.
You win the lottery, nobody
everything
goes.
happens for a reason.
Yeah, no. When you win the lottery, nobody goes. That happened for. No, that's
I
only
know.
for negative things.
100%. But how often do we talk about the sports butterfly effect and think about if this didn't happen, if that didn't happen, if that didn't happen, right? If this was this, then this and this. And you do that forever with the draft. So let's get our tears out of our cornflakes and let's get ready for the draft coming up in a month. We have got stuff we saw on the internet to wrap up hour number 2 next, 620 Rip City Radio. By the way, as I just continue on my my crusade today, I shall fight the front lines on this because I refuse to be doom and gloom about picking at number 7 overall. One more name. Let's throw another name out. Devin Booker, number 13 overall pick. Devin Booker.
Funny story with that.
Devin
I remember
Booker was
when he was drafted. It was like,
like 17 or something.
Yeah, he was. There was like, oh yeah, there's this guy from. Well,
I know he wasn't 17, but he was like super young, wasn't he?
Yes, 2 years in a row. Kentucky had 2 shooting guards who went very late in the draft. And again, I know he's not Devin Booker, but Tyler Hero, same kind of mix. Both those guys were Kentucky guys. They went in kind of the teens. They were looked at as scorers who couldn't do much else, and that's why they fell. And, you know, it's a good pull, Justin.
So, again, looking at it objectively, and I'm not saying that, hey, best place to be is 7 through 14. Like, no, it's not. The best place to be is number 1, right? You want all of your options, right? Best place to be is in the top 3. I understand that, but boy, and maybe it's just my algorithm, and maybe it's just because I think a lot of Blazer fans, as a way to cope with all the losing, turned tanking into a game, and tanking's not a game. It's a lottery. It's a draft lot. It's in the name. It's tanking in the lottery, and you are trying to give yourself. You can go buy all the lottery tickets you want to give yourself a better chance, but in the end, it's luck.
We timely reference here, Justin. I hope you get it. We learned during the Tom Brady roast, some people do anything for a lottery ticket to anything.
Yeah, exactly
so
right.
You know, it's interesting.
But you know, I think that's why a lot of fans, understandably, were upset. But like, you would have thought, like, by some of the reaction I saw yesterday, you would have thought that the NBA took away the Blazers pick. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong.
It's like, look at the reaction. It's like, oh, they're set. Might as well not even draft now. It's like, dude. Take a look at the postseason. Take a look at the playoffs. A lot of guys contributing to a lot of teams drafted 7th or higher. Not just, and again, there's 2 lazy examples, right? Well, Steph Curry was the 7th overall pick. Yeah, there's one Steph Curry. Right time, right guy, right scenario. Also needed a couple years with Mark Jackson and then Steve Kerr before it popped. But, because remember, he had the ankle injuries and he was too skinny and all that stuff.
They couldn't get over the hump. They were like a 6 seed, 5 seed every year.
Yeah.
And then Steve Kerr and this guy named Draymond Green and Clay changed everything.
Because everything has to happen for a reason, like I said last segment.
Like their best player, Justin, the year they won the championship, up until the postseason, was David Lee. Does anybody remember David Lee at all? He's like a multi-time All-Star. He was their All-Star.
It's a multi-time All-Star.
And Steve Kerr's like, yeah, Draymond Green's coming in. You're done. And I mean, and credit, man.
Yeah.
They saw the future.
So, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. And I'm not saying that everybody should be all excited about the number 7 pick. I'm just saying, can we just look at the evidence, right? Can we just look at it would be super lazy to be like, Jokic was 3-time MVP. Yeah, again, there's one Jokic in the world, right? He's the best player in the world. Everybody missed on him. It was a beauty contest, and, you know, he lost. He lost the beauty contest. He ultimately won all the prizes, which is a championship ring and a bunch of MVPs because he knows how to play basketball. But that's what the draft is. You want to treat it like a beauty contest. There's a lot of very tall, very physically gifted players who are drafted in the top 3, who are journeymen now, who are role players now. Heck, the Blazers have got one on their roster in DeAndre Ayton, number 1 overall pick. I'll bet you when the ping pong balls bounce their way, was that 2017?
Sorry?
When DeAndre Ayton was drafted. It's
Phoenix.
2017?
Yeah.
2016. 2015.
18.
28.
18.
Was it?
Yeah.
I kept going backwards.
Yep, 2018 draft. First overall pick. Phoenix Suns won the lottery.
So let me ask you this, Brenden. Do you think, because remember, the Suns stunk back then.
Horrible.
Right? They were terrible. Do you think the Phoenix Suns fans are pumped up and dancing around when they got that number 1 pick? And because there was a guy just an hour and a half down the road in Tucson, and how'd that turn
thrilled.
out?
They were thrilled.
How'd that turn out? So the lottery and drafting and everything is weird.
I mean, they tried.
It is an inexact science.
Like, they tried. Because you think about it, like Monty Williams, Chris Paul in his last gasp as being a solid player, Booker, and again, the butterfly effect, they were up 2-0 on Giannis.
I know.
I will never forget because
Giannis, a guy I haven't brought up yet today, who's
and,
number 15 overall pick.
And let me ask you this:
that.
If they win that championship in 18, is Monty Williams and DeAndre Ayton still there? I say yes.
Who knows? But it's a different
2020, whatever that year that was.
It's a totally.
And Giannis doesn't have a ring. Imagine that pressure if Giannis didn't have one.
So is Giannis even in Milwaukee? Like, this is
butterfly effect. Justin's favorite thing.
It's my favorite thing. So again, hope for the best with these ping pong balls. Real quick, I did want to get to, I'm not an MMA guy. I'm not I understand why people are. I remember when I was a kid and we would get the UFC, like the Ridge, and we would get like Hoist Gracie and Tank Abbott and all these guys and Kent Shamrock. But like I'm not a UFC guy. Respect it. And I see why people are fans. Not really my thing. But I did see something on the internet this weekend. Did you see the ring announcer announce the wrong name of the winner in a split decision? I think it was a woman. It was a woman's fight.
Oh, I did not see that. I must have missed it.
And like everybody just wanted to just clown on this guy. And just everybody was just taking their shots left and right. And I was just like, man, I could easily see how I could do that. I could easily see. Have you ever missed a name like really bad?
For like pronunciation?
Not pronunciation, but just like.
Because I've missed a few calling play-by-play. Like, it's hard sometimes, those Polynesian names.
Oh,
like it took.
There's a rhythm. You got to get a practice.
It's tough, yeah. So shout out to all the play-by-play announcers out there. But you're not talking that context?
No, I'm talking about how, like, I guess you and I, neither of us have been a ring announcer, but like when there's been stuff that's popped up where I've gone rogue on the update, and I'm like, nope, that's wrong.
There's a few times I'm like, Justin, the script is written perfectly for you.
Completely wrong.
But no, yeah.
But could you imagine being that guy? I feel so bad for him.
You and I know this. There's some times when, we're sitting here and I'll say things and be like, is that the most clear, best, we rabble on,
But, yeah, so that was the one thing I think I saw from the weekend where I was like, boy, if there was just, it's those want to get away. Who are the chefs? Poor guy. It's like, honest. And then, of course, the internet has to just dump on him over and over and over again. All right, coming up in hour number 3, we're going to have Sean Highkin on. Sean was in the room. A room where it happened, as they said in Hamilton, which they took from the West Wing. It was in the room where it happened there in Chicago when the ping pong balls did not bounce the Blazers' way. Where did they go from here? What's the truth on this draft? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. I want the truth about this draft. All coming up in hour number 3 next, 620 Rip City Radio. It is 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. Justin Myers with you. The NBA lottery took place in Chicago yesterday, and the Blazers will be picking 7th. It's 3 teams leapfrog the Blazers. Blazers will have the 14th pick as well in the first round. June 26th will be the first round of the NBA draft. Atlanta is now on the clock as the Atlanta Hawks go from play-in to the number 1 overall pick with just a 3% chance. The Indiana Pacers even up their series with the New York Knicks 2 games apiece with a 121-89 victory. And also the Denver Nuggets even up their series with the Minnesota Timberwolves 115-107. Tonight, 2 games. Cavs, Celtics Game 4, Thunders, Mavs Game 4 in 20 minutes. From the Rose Garden Report, Sean Highkin, who was there as the ping pong balls were popping yesterday, so we'll talk to Sean Highkin in 20 minutes. But hour 3 of Rip City Morning starts right now at 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully you are having a fantastic Monday. It has been my campaign all day long to continue to throw out names of players currently contributing at high, some may say elite, dare I say superstar levels in the NBA, who are all picked at either 7 or beyond. And we're going to stay positive, but I could for another 10, 11, 12, 15, 20 hour if they'd let me go without commercials, but they won't. We've been doing good, by the way, on the time thing. Don't want to risk it. I'll knock on wood. Don't want to jinx it, but I could go on and on and on and on and on about top 4 picks who did not work out so well in the NBA. It's not an exact science, this draft tanking lottery thing. You're not guaranteed an all-star if you're picking in the top 3. Sure, there's plenty of them out there. Yes, Kyrie, Luka, Anthony Edwards, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Am I missing one? Still playing right now? Chet Holmgren. Can't forget Chet. Chet Holmgren, he was a number 2 overall pick. So, yeah, those guys are out there, and I get it. There's also plenty of guys over the last 5, 6, 7 years who were drafted in the top 3, top 4, who are not contributing, maybe sitting at home.
So and again, I'm all for the positivity too, Justin, but just twisting the other side of the coin. There's a chance everybody's right. This is like a Giannis Anthony Bennett draft where there's one dude who pops.
Yeah, well, you find him at 7.
Right? You know what I mean? Like there is a chance that happens. Like go back and look at that draft. Not CJ McCollum, CJ McCollum, nice player. Is he going to get you over the hump? So like Justin said, the importance of nailing this draft when there's so few guys that everybody agrees on, it's massively important, and it's the key to your franchise, probably.
I choose to have hope. And I understand why hope has been kind of beaten out of a lot of Blazer fans.
Just have to play the other side of the coin a little bit. That's all.
But I choose to have hope because even in bad drafts, right, you go back and you just look, and certain teams, they either A, got lucky. Like, Giannis is a great example, right? That was regarded as a bad draft. Because other than Giannis, is there an all-star there anywhere in the
13 draft?
Yeah.
Let's see. Victor Oladipo was a brief all-star.
Okay.
A brief all-star.
Nice player, but nobody is like...
Oh, sorry. Rudy Gobert went 30th in that draft, so...
But I'm saying in the lottery.
Yeah, okay.
Because we could do the Gobert, Draymond, Jokic, like second rounders, right? We could do all of that. But why? Talking about in the lottery where you've got all this time, and it's like the Bucks took a chance on a big, physical, yet not quite refined, rough around the edges, Greek guy with a Nigerian heritage. And it turned out They won a ring with it, and he's one of the best players in the league.
I mean, yeah, I also look
They
back.
just took a chance on him
Yeah.
at 15, right?
Yes. And I also look back to the 15 draft, for example, Julius Randle fell to the Lakers at 7, right? That's another player.
Love to have that guy.
I don't think that's a player we mentioned. Maybe we did. We've mentioned so many players this morning. But or another one, Zach LaVine, 13th in that draft, right? Multi-time All-Star. So he's shout out Yusuf Nurkic, 16 in that draft. But it's it really is, for lack of better terms, Justin, just a crapshoot, and you're just trying to kind of figure out how it all works, right?
Here's the other part of this. And uniforms aren't magic, even though it feels like it sometimes. The same reason why logos are not magic. What do I mean by that? There's a lot of time we think of the organization, just they always do this. I had this argument once with a guy I used to work with at NBC Sports. He now is part of an afternoon show on a different station. But I had this argument with this guy one time. Oregon was about to play USC. And he's like, that's the game Oregon always loses. And I was like, what are you talking about? Now, again, I'm a Duck homer. I was like, oh, that's a game Oregon always loses. You've probably heard that before with the Beavs. This is a game the Beavs always lose. It was like, well, yeah, but the coaches aren't the same. The players certainly aren't the same because it's graduation and time and anything over 3 years, right? The athletic director is not but you get into this mindset that, that's just what they do. Because I've seen it time and time again. We are now going into essentially year 3 of Joe Cronin at the helm. That is an infancy of a GM's career.
When you consider the Spurs GM R.C. Buford's been there for almost 30 years. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
even Bob Myers lasted less than a decade?
Can I say something about Bob Myers real quick?
Oh, about his commentating?
No. More superficial than that.
Okay, he's a good dressed dude.
Potentially, but bad haircut. You're that rich.
Yeah,
You're that rich. You should not have bad hair. I wish, and now I hope that the scholars of this great country are doing things to maybe advance people, but I am fascinated, and I want to know, what is it with rich guys and bad haircuts? Because you're rich. Do you know what I mean? There's got to be some sociological thing that just, and I'm not saying hey, some people are just born with great hair. Got it. Good for all of them. But even if you have bad hair, you can pay $500 and make it look good. Do you know what I mean? Not with fake, not with color, but just they're wizards with the scissors and the clippers and everything else. And it's obviously Mark Davis is the first that comes to mind, the owner of the now Las Vegas Raiders. Terrible haircut. Terrible.
Oh, the bowl cut? Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's bad.
You're rich. You're a billionaire.
Do you
But Bob, I was watching basketball over the weekend, and I see Bob Myers there, and I'm like, awesome. Another Myers is succeeding. Carrier of the name. Don't know if we are related, probably, but he spells it correctly.
He does. Do you
But then I go dude, you were a high-level VP of basketball operations for how many years? Probably made millions upon millions of dollars. Why can't you get a better haircut?
It's true.
Why can't you get a better
That's
haircut?
Justin's spot on this one. I'm curious, do you because obviously he came out of nowhere for most of us, but Justin, you being the Pac-12 savant that you are, do you remember him playing at UCLA?
I do not.
Okay.
Not one bit.
Yeah, because he was a 4-year UCLA, just
I maybe would have been hey, Myers, that's cool.
Right,
I know
yeah,
that.
I
That's
thought,
a cool name.
Because he played at MacArthur Court, so I was I wonder if Justin's Myers to Myers kind of a thing.
If he would have had a game where he'd buried
just
Oregon
dominated.
with 17, I would Amid Tamir. Do you know who that guy is? No, you shouldn't. But he played at Cal, and he only had great games against Oregon.
Name sounds familiar.
All right, back to the Blazers real quick. But do you know what I mean? Where we put, and I understand that ownership and governorship and whatever you want to call it in the front office, and people have their feelings on that, and that's fine. But you know what? You've got Joe Cronin, who's going into draft number 3. Still too early to tell on Scoot. Shaden Sharp, not there yet. but we are in the infancy of this. And I understand where there are years and years and years of draft picks upon draft picks upon draft picks that didn't work out. But the Blazers are now in a unique situation. You know, Brenden and I were talking about it earlier on the show. Like, this is the third year they're in the lottery. Before that, they haven't been in the lottery. When was the last time they were in the lottery? Not with a traded pick, not with a pick that they acquired, but with an actual, like, they were there. Is that when they sent, like, Brandon Roy to the lottery?
So we're eliminating the last couple before the last
before the Joe Cronin tanking started.
Or lottery, yeah, you're going back to Zach Collins.
But they acquired that pick.
Okay.
They were in the playoffs that year. They were not in the lottery.
CJ. They were bad. They tanked for CJ that year.
Yeah.
They were bad.
What was that, 11 years ago?
2013, you bet.
So, like, in the last, like, this is new territory again. And even back then with CJ, they had Dame. They weren't on a full tank. They were dealing with injuries. You know what I mean?
There's some first-round picks, dribs and drabs. It's like, remember when we all thought Nasir Little was going to be...
But again, that was in the 20s.
Yeah.
And so, like, I understand where there's frustration when you think of a tank as like, all right, you tank, you get a top 3 pick, that pick becomes an all-star, and you're out. Doesn't always work that way. But it doesn't mean all hope is lost. Because, again, Halliburton, Jamal Murray, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Paul George, Jokic. Need I go on and on and on and on of players drafted 7th or beyond who are dominating in this league right now and are contributing mightily to teams that have an actual legitimate chance to win the NBA title. All right, Sean Highkin's going to be joining us coming up in a bit. We will have an RCM mailbag. Before we get to Sean, though, I do want to tell you about Oregon's roofing, siding, windows, and bath renovation experts. That's right. They're at an elite level, superstar level. That's, of course, DeBella. And for the past few months, if you've been thinking about updating your home, well, now that we are in May, it's the perfect time to make it happen. Folks at DeBella do phenomenal work. You've probably seen it on Better Homes and Garden, HGTV, Real Simple, and they will handle your home improvement better than anyone else here in the great state of Oregon. How do I know that? Well, the 5-star reviews tell me. 15,000 plus. That number continues to grow every single day. And you can Google it because it's right there on Google. Award-winning customer service, top marks from Angie's List and Home Advisor. And as you plan your summertime spending and try to save some money, go with solar. That's right. You could potentially pay for a new roof with savings and federal and state incentives by going with solar shingles. DeBella has all the details. So connect with them today for free, convenient estimates and take advantage of their no payment until 2025 financing opportunity on approved credits. So now is the time to update your roofing, siding, windows, and bath, all with DeBella, and start saving today. All right, so the draft lottery took place yesterday. Man, the evolution of the draft lottery wasn't even a lottery back in the day. It was a coin flip. It's like, you want to tank all that away, heads or tails? And then it went to envelopes in a big old plastic bubble, and then it went to a complex version of ping pong balls and percentages and everything else. And it came down yesterday, and the Blazers fell to 7th. One man was in the room with multiple other media members, and we are lucky enough to have back on the big show from the Rose Garden Report, Sean Highkin back on the show. Good morning, Sean. How are we doing?
Doing all right. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Obviously, a ton to talk about from the selection of the ping pong balls yesterday. So help me, because I've obviously never been in the room. You were there not only this year, but you were there last year, and I know you wrote about it in the Rose Garden Report about how when you've got like a Wembanyama kind of hanging out there, the tension in the room is a little bit different. But just kind of take me and the listeners kind of behind the scenes. Like, what is it like in the sequestered ping pong ball room?
So the actual lottery, the drawing of the 4 names, because they only draw for the top 4 picks, and then everybody else just slides in order beyond that. But the actual drawing of the 4 teams that are going to get the top 4 picks, that process only takes like 5 to 10 minutes of actually like, and that's like, it's like like you said, there's a lot of tension in the room because basically like they have a timekeeper who, every 10 seconds raises his hand to signal to draw another ball out of the lottery. And then they call out the number on the thing. And then after they get to the 4th ping pong ball, then they stop the machine. And there's a little like clattering of the balls as they stop, jumping around in the little hopper. And then there's somebody over on the side who has, there's like a giant wall that has all 1,000 combinations. And somebody, there's somebody over there that like reads, like looks and sees which combination it is and then calls out which team it was assigned to. And then everybody knows, okay, that team's getting the 1st pick. That team's getting the 2nd pick. And they go, part of the reason why they let media members in there in the first place is because they want us to see how transparent and how above board the whole process is so that we can all vouch for it and say, hey, yeah, there's no way that, like, you can have your conspiracy theories if you want, but I've seen it twice now. There's no way they could rig it if they want to. They go so far out of their way to make sure everybody knows that every single step of the way, like it's to the point where the timekeeper that is signaling every 10 or 20 seconds to have another ping pong ball be drawn out has his back to the machine, so he doesn't see, any of which balls are in which position like they go so far out of their way to make sure everybody sees every step of the process. But like you said, and like I wrote in the column yesterday, last year it was like everybody in that room, and they take away all of our phones and our electronics, so we have no way of being able to communicate to the outside world. So, we all know the results of the lottery like an hour before it's shown on TV, and that's when the rest of the world knows. So we're all kind of in there to talk amongst ourselves for an hour after they actually draw the names before it's actually shown on TV, and then they let us out once they've announced it to the public. But last year, like, it was just like one of the most tense rooms I've actually ever been in my life. And then when they called out San Antonio as the number 1 pick, and that meant that they were going to get Victor Wembanyama, which is the guy that the whole league had been talking about for 2 years as like, this is the next guy. Like, this is the next, face of the NBA. This is like the next generational, like LeBron type of prospect. Once San Antonio got called as getting Wemby, then it was like, oh my God, like everybody kind of knew the magnitude of what had happened. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, when Atlanta got their name called, I think they had like a 3% chance of jumping up. They were the 10th team in the lottery odds. Like, it was a kind of a surprise that they jumped up. Normally it would be like a huge deal that a team with that low of odds jumped up to the number 1 spot. But this year, because there's such little juice, I guess would be the term for it, for this draft, like there's nobody in this draft that anybody thinks is like a Wemby or an Anthony Edwards or like that type of like guy that you draft and that's going to be your franchise guy for the next 10 years. That when Atlanta got it, everybody was just kind of like, okay, cool, congrats, I guess. Like, it was not really like, and as it relates to the Blazers, like, I think obviously you always want the higher pick, but I saw Joe Cronin. I saw like some of the other front office staffers after the lottery. I didn't get the sense that any of them were really losing sleep over it, because this is the kind of draft where everybody's boards are so all over the place that they could probably get one of their top 3 guys at 7. Like, I don't think anybody's really too, like, last year it was like, if you get Wemby, you're set.
Yeah.
If you jump up into the top 3 and you can get Scoot or Brandon Miller, which the Blazers were fortunate enough to have that luck last year. But if you get one of those 2 guys, you're still in pretty good shape. But it's really brutal if you're Detroit and there's 2 years in a row where you have the worst record in the league, and both years you jump all the way back to 5. Like, that's tough.
Sean Highkin from the Rose Garden Report joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Real quick, I went to a concert last summer where they put the phones in the little bags. So you couldn't use them. And during the show, it was fine because I'm still a Gen Xer, Sean, who I can sit and watch a concert and not film it. But it was the time before where you, like you said, you actually had to sit and chit chat with people around you because you didn't have like the what is that like as you sit there and you see, like, both this year and last year, you see the news. You're a reporter. You are used to, I see news, I grab my phone or my laptop, I put it out there. What is that like, just kind of sitting there? I'm sure obviously you're taking notes and whatnot, but what is that like not having your phone, knowing that like massive news is happening right in front of you?
Well, I'm with you on the concert thing. I actually, a couple of years ago, I saw Jack White at Moda, and he did the thing where like they put your phone in a bag. And I actually enjoyed the experience of being at a concert and actually being present and not having to worry about like, oh, I'm going to take a picture and put it online and like to prove that I was at this show. Like I was not even like mad at that. I mean, last year it was actually like not that hard to pass the time because like last year's lottery was such a big deal. Like it was, first there was like oh my God, the Spurs are getting Wemby. Like that's like changing the entire league. And then from Portland's end, they jump up into the top 3 and they're either going to end up with Scoot or Brandon Miller if they use the pick. But kind of the buzz in the room at the time was that because Joe had made all those public comments about how they're going to push all their chips in to build around Dame, the buzz in the room was, are they going to trade the pick? Who can they get for this? Are they going to try to get Mikal Bridges? Are they going to try to get Pascal Siakam? Like, is whoever they get with that pick going to be enough for Dame to be happy and want to stay? Like, there was enough to talk about last year among like the executives and the other reporters and whoever else in the room that hour after we knew the lottery results actually went by pretty quickly. This year it was like, okay, we know the names. Nobody's really excited about anybody in this draft. So just, okay, cool. Like, let's just, And so then we all just like had an hour to just kind of hang out and not even like, there wasn't even really a ton to discuss with this lottery because like, I don't know. It was a little bit of a different vibe this year than it was last year.
All right, let's talk about this draft because either A, this draft is really bad, as I have been hearing over and over online, or B, Sean, there was maybe a couple of people who have maybe thrown that out, and then just like anything else on the internet, it just keeps getting picked up because it's very convenient, because there isn't a name of somebody, like you said. There is no Paolo, there's no Wemby, there's no Zion, there's no Anthony Edwards. But when you look at this draft, is it getting this bad rap simply because there isn't star power or name recognition? Or is it really from a talent perspective or from a basketball ability perspective really that far down?
You know what? That's one of the things. I'm still in Chicago for the rest of this week. I'm going to be at the draft combine the next 3 days. So that's one of the things I'm going to really try to kind of feel out and see how people actually view it. I think it has the reputation that it has because in most years, who's going to be the number 1 pick. Like, everybody knew last year that it was going to be Victor Wembanyama. Everybody kind of knew a year before. Like, there's usually, like you said, a Zion or a, Luka wasn't the number 1 pick, but there's usually like 1 or 2 guys that everybody's been talking about for a year and everybody knows is going to go, top 2 or top 3 or whatever the case may be. This year, it's like, there might be, like, somebody might go number 1 and then another team that's picking in the top 5 might not have even had that guy ranked in their top 10. Like, it's so all over the place that I mean there's going to be a couple of guys in this draft, and I don't know who they are because I'm, full transparency, I'm not like the biggest draft junkie in the world. I kind of start getting to know these guys at this point of the year. I don't watch a ton of college basketball. I don't watch a ton of international stuff. There are people that do that work and, really watch a ton of that stuff, and I just kind of defer to them. So I'm not going to get on here and say that I'm like the biggest prospect evaluator or that I have expert opinions on these prospects individually that you should take seriously. But there's always a couple of guys in every draft that pop that you don't expect or that maybe weren't high picks. Like, like the famous example is the 2013 draft where Giannis was the 15th pick and Rudy Gobert was the 17th pick, or not 17th, 27th rather. And Anthony Bennett was the number 1 pick and he was out of the league in 2 years. So this stuff is always like, there's no science to any of this stuff. So there's going to be 2 or 3 guys this year that are going to like be all-stars or, be good, high-level guys. It's just there's no consensus at all among teams in the league as to who some of those guys are. Like the one guy that kind of has risen up now as like the only real consensus top 3 guy is, and it's a guy that I know that if the Blazers were in that position is somebody that I have pretty good educated guess that they would have been pretty high on or that they would have targeted is Alex Sarr, the French kid from the Australian League. He's the guy that I think there's the most consensus around. But I've also talked to people with other teams that think like, oh, I don't even think this guy's a lottery pick. Like it's so all over the place. There's no like and in some ways it could be a good thing because usually with the draft prospect or like the whole process, as you know, there kind of develops this groupthink around like, okay, everybody says this guy is the guy, so I'm just going to go with this. Like with this being so all over the place, it kind of puts a front office like Portland's that's so draft focused with Mike Schmitz in there. Like since there's no consensus, they're not going to get killed for taking somebody that isn't in the consensus. Like if they take somebody that's totally off of like all the mock drafts and not, on everybody's radar, they're not going to get killed for it because nobody thinks there's a set order this year. So nobody's going to say like, oh, that's such a reach. Like there would be normally if everybody kind of had agreed on a set order for these prospects. So it's going to be a real interesting next month and a half to play out.
Sean Highkin from the Rose Garden Report joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Sean, now that we have the order and we've got now a month and a half until the draft does take place, it is going to be fascinating to see kind of the direction that the Blazers go in. And I think they're in a spot, Sean, where I think they have the benefit but also the burden where they kind of don't need anything but need everything. Does that make sense, right? Like when you look going, it's like, do they pick best available or need? It's like, well, they kind of need everything and they kind of don't need anything. And I know that ESPN has their mock draft up. The only that I just had to laugh at because I think Topic, I think that's how you pronounce it, Nikola Topic, they're at 7, and he's a point guard. And I feel like we've done this before. I feel like we've been down this road before. But when you look at kind of like maybe if you could guess Joe Cronin and the Blazers' mindset going into this draft, what do you think it is?
They're not taking another guard.
Okay.
I would be stunned if they took another guard because if they. And it's look, if there was one of whether it's Topic or whether it's one of the 2 Kentucky kids, Rob Dillingham or Reed Shepherd, who are the other 2 guards that are kind of projected in the top 10, if they felt like one of those guys was better than Scoot Henderson or Shaedon Sharpe and it was worth the redundancy because it was such a high level prospect that we would look like an idiot in 10 years if we didn't take this guy, then fine, go for it. But I don't think, like we were saying earlier with these even for as rough of a rookie season as Scoot Henderson had last year, he would still probably easily go be in a consensus top 2, top 3 guy in this draft. Even for as rough as part of his rookie season was. So I would be very, very surprised if a guard is the way that they go with the 7th pick, whether it's any of those guys. And in fact, it's actually probably a good thing for them that those guys kind of get talked about as those guys because a team like San Antonio that needs a guard, do they take Topic? Do they take one of the Kentucky guys? The more of those teams ahead of them that do want, target one of those guards, that makes it more likely that somebody that they like is actually still available to them at 7. So I think outside of guards, which again, they're not going to do, I don't think because that's the one area of the roster that they're kind of set in, and I don't think any of the guards that are in the lottery this year are like such great prospects that you want to further crowd the Scoot, Shaden, Simons like group. But other than that, I think they go best player available or biggest upside swing available.
Sean Highkin from the Rose Garden Report joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. It's mentioned you mentioned, obviously Scoot, Shaden, Simons, Malcolm Brogdon's still on this roster, and kind of looking ahead into the summer. And again, this is a massively unfair question. All right, it's an unfair question, but obviously, I think there's a lot of Blazer fans who are just kind of looking for some kind of big, significant move, maybe just to break up the monotony of the tanking the last 3 years and kind of show some signs of life. But if you look at the roster the way it is and kind of the draft order now that it is set and heading into the summer, do you see a potential big, significant move, a la Anthony Simons maybe being on the trading block? Or do you see the Blazers just kind of continuing along as they have been building this roster?
I don't think they can continue with the same roster that they have, both from like this roster is not good enough, which Joe has said on the record numerous times, including last night after the lottery, but also just from a math standpoint, like they're, as it sits right now, which again, it's a whole year before this is actually a thing they have to worry about. But as it sits right now, they're in the luxury tax for a rebuilding team, which is not really something that they want or plan to still be. So at the minimum, like you got to trade Malcolm Brogdon. Like that's just from his contract situation and just him being a guy that teams want and it just not making sense to keep him. That's the one guy that you got to trade. Like, I think I would be shocked if he's on the roster in training camp. And as far as Anthony Simons, I think it's something you have to look at because, Scoot Henderson, I think, like I said, he had a pretty rough rookie season for a lot of the year when he was kind of getting his feet wet. But the last month of the season, I think he showed enough growth that you feel comfortable that he's not going to be there was a lot of bust talk around him early in the season. I think he's gotten past that. I don't think that's really in play for him. I think he's shown enough that you can feel comfortable with him and Shaden as your kind of backcourt going forward. And I'm not saying they should just trade Simons just to trade him. Like he's a guy that's going to have a lot of, they still really like him. He's on a pretty good contract for what he brings and his production. And he's a guy that a lot of teams can use, but I also think his trade value is probably never going to be higher than it is right now. So I think that's something you have to look at if you're them. Jeremy Grant, I could see going either way. Like if they get a good enough offer, I think they should be more open to it than they were maybe at the trade deadline when they just weren't interested in trading him at all. But also, they like him. He's a good locker room guy. He's a good vet. Guys like him. I could see them keeping him around for another year or at least until the trade deadline. But I think Brogdon you have to move, and Simons I think they should be more open to than they've been.
Sean Highkin from the Rose Garden Report. You can follow him on Twitter at Highkin. That's with the GH. And you can get to the rosegardenreport.com and subscribe to the Rose Garden Report. Hey, Sean, thanks so much for the time. Enjoy Chicago. I know everybody throws out ideas for Chicago, but I'm going to do it anyways. Pequod's Pizza. If you have a chance, I would highly recommend.
Literally just went there last night for dinner.
Man, how awesome is Pequod's?
Yeah. I mean, I lived in Chicago for 4 years.
Oh,
man.
well, then what am I doing? I'm a doofus then.
I know the city, but yeah, no, Pequod. I went to a friend and I went to Pequod's for dinner last night. So I'm all the way with you. I'm not a huge deep dish guy. Like when I lived in Chicago, it was like every once in a while, every few months type of thing. Because it's like it's a commitment.
Yes, it is.
When I'm doing deep dish, Pequod's is definitely the move. I'm 100% with you on that.
Giving Chicago tips to the guy who lived in Chicago. Yep, I'm a big dumb doofus. Hey, Sean, thanks so much for your time. Have a great time there in Chicago. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
There you go. Hey, go to this place. Hey, I don't know if you know this. Lived there for 4 years.
That'd be like someone saying, have you ever been to this spot in Winston? And you'd be like,
hey, Justin, Winston? Dude, wildlife safari. Gotta go there. Like,
shout out Jean for a great sense of humor about it, man.
Like, I knew that, too. Like, I knew that.
No idea.
I've seen, like, stuff online where Sean talked. Like, I don't, like, we've had him on the show a handful of times. He's very nice. But, like, hey, you know what you want to do? Hey, Brenden, if you ever go to Sherwood, Abby's in Newburgh, definitely. It's like, yeah. I live there. Had a birthday party there.
That was
But
great.
can I tell you, I feel good about it because I said Pequod's, and he was like, "Was there last night." I was like, "All right." Well, I
Your
live
recommendations are on point.
there. So dumb. All right, let's go to the break. We got the mailbag coming up next. 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up the big show. We're going to get to the mailbag in a moment. Feeling any better, Brenden, after hearing like Sean Highkin?
Hearing that Joe Cronin wasn't all that disappointed makes me a little bit more optimistic.
Because again, I don't know if this is a good draft or a bad draft. I don't think anybody really knows if it's a good draft or a bad draft. There's no name recognition.
But yeah, I mean,
there's no celebrity.
I've told you from the get-go, 2 years ago, whenever it was, 3 years ago, I really think the Blazers have smart people drafting. So Mike Schmitz is like one of those guys I really, really like and respect.
Mm-hmm.
And, it doesn't surprise me that they'd be like button up the overalls, take the lunch pails, and put on the hard hats and be like, we'll figure this out because, we are really good at evaluating. But no, yeah, Sean was great and appreciate him jumping on the show because I feel like I was there.
I think
weird protocol.
Something that
very weird protocol at the lottery. Like
they have to because
I get it.
There's too because I even joked earlier today about conspiracy theories, even though I don't believe it. I was joking about it, but there's too many crazies on the internet who are like, oh, the NBA is rigged. It's like, all right, so we got to have a guy standing there with a stopwatch with his back to the thing, and we got like 15 people in the room, right? It's like to prove to everybody. What a crazy time. All right. Let's get to the mailbag, random questions, any subject, any topic. You know the drill. Let's fire it up.
All right, firing up the big mailbag today. Justin, how well do you think you would do holding on to that information? Say the Blazers won the lottery yesterday, and Sean was in there.
Yeah.
And put yourself there.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA would have to tackle me because if the Blazers won the lottery, I'd be like running out the door. The Blazers won, but you know what I mean? Like, could you hang on to that for an hour and not be like biting your nails or you know what I mean? Just like all that kind of like nervous stuff.
I should have maybe done a better job of interviewing and asked like the follow-up, like, what do you do next? Like, what do you do next? But I think if you ever want to cover the NBA ever again, you're like, I'm just going to go ahead and keep this to myself.
It's got to be hard.
Well,
you already done a concert like that, so I've never done that in my life.
So I've never done it. I've never had something where I covered professionally where they take your phone away, but I have done like in the NFL. I've done when I worked in Seattle. We would do a show at Seahawks practice facility, and there's certain practices that are open to the public, and then there are certain ones that aren't. And you get a list of like, hey, things you are not allowed to talk about or tweet about or record, which is injuries and specific plays, right? If you see the Seahawks working on a fake punt, you don't report that. You don't film that. And if you see anybody that gets hurt, so that's the courtesy you give. And when you give that courtesy, then they let you watch practice. I have heard stories of people who did not follow said policy, and they were never allowed anywhere near the parking lot or the stadium ever again. So I think it'd be easy for me because I suck at tweeting. But I could see, could you just imagine? Like if you were like the Hawks, like you were like a Hawks reporter and you're just like, they got the number 1 pick. Like
I'd be like,
but you couldn't link it. Everybody knows you.
It'd be so hard, man. Like that's how I said, if say I was.
Are you good at, hold on, reverse mailbag. How good are you at keeping secrets?
It depends on what it is. Like something like that.
Like if I came to you and I said, Brenden, you cannot tell anybody. And that, would you keep it in the vault?
Yeah, no.
Or would you tell I got to tell somebody, so you go to a trusted source who isn't involved?
I think it depends because, like Justin, I know there are things. We've been together for 3 years. I know there are things that I've only said to you that you've not repeated, and vice versa.
Yes.
So we've established our trust of like, hey, we can talk about anything, and it doesn't leave this building.
Well, it's funny too because I have my wife, and my wife is an attorney. I might have mentioned that once or twice.
Same with Jeopardy.
But I'll go to like Kelly and I'll be like, hey, attorney-client privilege. Like,
I love it.
and so like, but I got to tell, like, so I will tell my wife stuff because I know, I go, hey, attorney-client privilege.
Just hand her $1.
But I got to
Yeah,
tell,
there it is.
I got to tell somebody. And I know I can trust you because I go attorney-client privilege.
That's great.
So I'm fairly good at keeping secrets.
Well, and
but
you know this, Jeff.
just know that I've probably told my
Oh,
wife.
yeah, and you know this, like, you're, like, for lack of better terms, because you are kind of my only coworker that I see physically,
Yeah.
I bounce a lot of stuff off you. You can, I mean, you know this, like, I bounce life advice off you. I ask, what was it like when you were my age? And just a bunch of things because, you know, I think we have that fun kind of relationship between us where we can talk about everything. But, yeah, that's definitely interesting. Let's go ahead and get further in the mailbag, Justin. How was your outside TV this weekend?
Outside TV was legit.
How'd you enjoy the heat this last weekend?
It's, well, because I've got a covered patio and it's got a nice little breeze that
Was that your weekend, just kind of hanging out at home or do anything else?
you got some. See, this is the thing when you buy a house, right? That you know, but you put it in the back of your mind. Especially a house in Portland or just in the Pacific Northwest, right? Is we go into our little cave after Christmas because you decorate your house at Christmas. You take down and once you take down your Christmas lights, usually you can be like, all right, no more real outside work unless something breaks for like 4 more months. And you just put it outside of your mind. And while you look at the forecast and see sun for 10 days and you're like, I'm going to be on a boat. I'm going to be, doing whatever else it is I look at the sun and be like, all right, I've been putting off this project. I've been putting off this. So I did a nice balance. Fixed up a project I was doing in the front yard. So the front yard's fairly close to being done. But then also, I enjoyed some margaritas on the back porch.
Yeah, buddy.
While watching NBA playoffs. So yeah. I had a little balance.
No, it was really hot this weekend. I was actually surprised at how warm it got.
Usually,
did you see we broke records from like, I think Saturday was 1931 and then Sunday was like 1936.
Right.
So, I mean, Justin, when you're almost breaking 100-year records, like, it was just fascinating to me that like a weather record can stand for like almost 100 years.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, it's just fascinating to me.
I got like 45 seconds, but it's like, I know that everybody gets all like hot takey when the weather starts getting weird, but like also like, what was going on in 1931? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a scientist. I believe scientists, and I feel like, we should do our part for the planet, but also whenever it gets like super hot, everybody's like, see, it's the straws at Starbucks. And you're like, there were no Starbucks straws in 1931. It got hot then too. But again,
the turtles were okay then too.
I don't know. Probably shouldn't even dive into that topic. All right. That's going to do it for the big show. Thanks to Sean Highkin from the Rose Garden Report. Thanks to super producer Brenden. Thanks to all of you. We are back at it tomorrow morning, bright and early here on 620 Rip City Radio.